Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey watching 90 Day Fiancé. Let's get to the show. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's see if anything of interest comes out of my face.
I want to talk with Brandon, but today Brandon all day working. Betty told me I need fork at farm today, but I don't know how. But I remember Betty tell me I need take eggs from chicken.
Wait, so yesterday when she arrived to the farm, they did a very jokey orientation to the farm, and she was visibly put off by a lot of the things, naturally, since it's new to her. And the next day, she wakes up, Brandon's already at work, and she has to do this by herself. She has to work the farm by herself without any guidance. That's absurd. I mean, unless they are prepared for her to make a ton of mistakes and blame themselves for not being there to help guide her. There's just so many weird things about this family, about the way they treat her. Now, maybe Julia will be like, you know what? It's a good opportunity. When in Rome, when in Virginia, let's do it. So, I don't know. Let's see what happens.
We got a lot of stuff to do. When the sun comes up, that's when all the animals get fed in the morning.
Really?
They're used to eating at 7, so 7 a.m.
Morning?
Yes.
Okay.
So Julia, she was a little slacking this morning.
My God. My God. What? My God. I mean, it's one thing to make her do it. It's another thing to shame her for not waking up at 5 a.m. or not knowing that you're supposed to do it. Am I missing something? There's something very strange is happening.
Okay, so you're gonna have to get in there. All right, you ready? Come on. Time's a wasting, girl.
So when we saw this scene with Big Ed and Rose, and Big Ed was taking care, I believe, of pigs in the Philippines, I actually thought that was kind of funny. But there's something not funny about, I think the show is trying to make it seem funny. They're playing the funny music, but it doesn't seem funny to me. It definitely, people are in the comments are using the terms like indentured servant, and it really just has that feel to it. She clearly doesn't want to do it. They're not helping her, and without any guidance, without any help, they're just putting her to work. I don't know, there's just something very strange about this whole thing.
One and half in the other.
And where is that?
You want to flip that one over if you can? You can flip that one over.
Plus, I think according to the plan, they're only going to be here for a couple months. So what's the point in training her just to get her kind of acclimated to farm life, just to have her move out of the farm in a couple months? I just don't understand. Like, as I was saying last time, there's nothing wrong with the family saying, hey, Julia, we all work around here and we want you to do some chores. But let's work together on what chores you're good at and what chores you're comfortable with, and then we'll split things up that way. And maybe she would say, oh, well, I'm really good with cooking dinner, or I'm really good with cleaning, or I'm really good with doing taxes, or whatever it is. And that would make sense to me. But to route her into doing this specifically when they don't do it, I mean, that's actually the other weird thing about this. According to the way this looks, the whole family, none of them are doing this. Brandon, the parents, they're not working on the farm. It looks like the friend of the family, which seems like maybe an employee, and Julia are expected to do all the farm work. Like, that's not sharing of farm work, right? That's just putting people to work, doing things you don't want to do or something. I don't know. Who knows? I have a lot of questions. And Julia's rolling with it. It just seems very strange to me. I can't imagine doing that to someone. I'm just thinking of myself. If someone came to stay with me in my house, it's to say I had a guest for a couple of months, I probably wouldn't ask them to do anything. But I would be mortified to ask someone to do stuff around the house. That's hospitality, right? You're supposed to be hospitable. Isn't that what people in this area are supposed to be like? I don't know. Some people from farms commented below last time because I asked for it, and they said, no, this is strange. No one on a farm asks random newcomers to do a bunch of things like this. This is a very odd presentation.
He's hungry because you slept so late. Stop it. Okay, run.
Now, let's speculate as to why the family would do this. Well, the obvious speculation is that the parents are trying to drive Julia away, or the parents are trying to establish that Julia is under their control. They know that she's not from around here, that she doesn't have any support system, and if they make her do things that she doesn't want to do, it is phase one in their overall campaign of trying to break her down and make sure she understands that she is an underling that doesn't have any power or whatever. The other possibility is that they're playing it up for the cameras and the producers ask them or push them in this direction. I don't know. Another possibility is that the family is highly confused about hospitality and polite behavior. I mean, certainly some people are raised in a way that makes them not so great when it comes to being polite. Another possibility is that there is just way too much work to be done on this farm, and if we knew everything that had to be done, it would make sense that Julia would have to do something because things are going to fall apart if everyone doesn't do their part. Maybe they're resentful of Brandon moving out, and so eventually, and they are taking out their anger on Brandon on Julia. I don't know. Those are just off the top of my head. There's probably others.
Brandon, this is last time. I take care of pigs. Brandon, I think these are my bad dreams.
Wait, what?
I hate this. And I think about everyone go home.
All right. Makes sense. I think a lot of people could relate to Julia. She's been very consistent, and she has a preference here, and she's kind of giving an ultimatum. Either we leave, or I go home. Yeah, it's fine. I think that that's fine. I wish that there was a little bit more explanation there around, like, this is how it makes me feel. I want to be with you. Can we please go? A little bit of sweetening the pot, so to speak. But I think it, it's fair. And now Brandon is in a position where he has to do something about that. Let's see what he does.
It's your first day here and you're already saying you want to go home?
This is not good. This is very bad.
I know this new country lifestyle is different for her, but I wish she would see this as an opportunity and just give life on the farm a chance.
So, all right, and there's nothing wrong. I don't know if many people agree with Brandon's stance on this, but there's nothing inherently wrong with him saying, look, it's only been a day. I'm guessing you're going to adjust. I still have this very fundamental question, and maybe we'll get some data along these lines during this conversation, around how possible is it that they move out? Because it sounded like from a previous conversation that he does have the money to move out, but he doesn't want to use that money for that because he wants to save up for a fancy wedding and reception. So if it's possible to move out, then you just have to wonder why. Why not move out and have a much cheaper wedding, or even just have a justice of the peace kind of wedding and not spend any money on it? And then once you save up money, a couple years later, you can have a big party or something. I don't know. So who knows? But let's see how they do here. Now, the thing that we always want to look to the show, or I want to, is I don't know about these people's lives. They have to make their own choices. We can have opinions about it, but they have to live their lives, and we don't know the whole picture because the show only shows us a little bit. But what we can use is use this as a jumping off point to learn about things so we can improve our own lives and reflect on ourselves. And in relationships, in partnerships, there are always conflicts. There's always moments like this where it's, I want this, I want this. And both people cannot both win. Someone has to win, or there has to be a compromise. Now, how do you talk about it? How do you express your feelings? How do you listen to the other person? How do you show that you're hearing the other person? How do you take care of the other person? How do you take care of yourself? How do you assert yourself? How do you listen? How do you balance it out? How much time do you take? How much love do you express during that process? How do you work on your values? That sort of thing. How do you emphasize how important it is to you without insulting the other person? Like, if I were to talk with her before this conversation, I would say, well, certainly you can have an ultimatum at some point if that's how you feel about it. But let's ramp up to that. Let's give him a chance. Let's tell him, look, this is what I did today, and I hated this, I hated that, and I feel hurt, and I feel upset, and I would like to move out because of how bad I feel. So, Brandon, I need you to understand how bad I feel. And maybe if they had that conversation, it might lead Brandon down the road of like, you know what, maybe we should move out. If that doesn't happen, then you can lay on the ultimatum and say, well, I'm going to give you an ultimatum now because of how I feel. I can't. This is a deal breaker to me. So there's a lot of different ways to communicate it while still sticking to your guns. Let's see how the two of them do here.
Yeah, maybe we'll come up with a solution for this, but we have to go out to eat tonight with my parents.
Why we don't have choice, Brandon?
My granddad's excited to meet you.
All right. So the way Brandon responds is, okay, well, that's all fine and dandy that you have this ultimatum, but we have to go to dinner with my parents because my grandfather wants to meet you. Ooh. Like, talk about dismissing. What's the point in going to dinner with your parents if she's just going to go home tomorrow? She just said, we have to change or I'm going home. So what's going on in Brandon's mind? That's always this question. What is going on in his mind and in his heart? The running hypothesis is that he is a ghost, meaning that he doesn't know who he is and what he wants. He feels like a ghost to other people. And through high control relationship or something going wrong in his early childhood, he is not in touch with who he is. He was never given a chance to think, this is what I want, this is how I feel, this is what I want in contrast to what my parents want. Here's how I know that. Here, I know my emotional center. I know how I feel about things. And some people will walk around like they're adults, even though they have essentially a 2-year-old understanding of who they are and how they feel, because they weren't given that chance to get in connection with that. They come to therapy, and we take years and years to get them in touch with that. It's possible, but it takes a long time. So that's the running hypothesis. We have some data along those lines. There certainly is a lot of, sort of circumstantial data around that, but not enough really to say for sure, because we would have to talk with him and say, what do you want? How do you know what you want? And hear their response. There's very typical responses from clients who haven't been given the opportunity to know who they are and how they feel. They often will say things along the lines of, like, if I say, what do you want? They'll say like, well, I wouldn't mind blah, 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 blah. Or, well, I've been doing this for a long time and it kind of makes sense to continue doing it. Instead of, this is who I am and this is what I want. And when I think about doing this, it feels this way to me. There's pros and cons to it. People want me to do this, but I kind of want to do that, but I kind of get what other people are saying. But that's what people who are in connection with how they feel. Also, they will tend to talk about their emotions in a much more complicated way. They will say something like if I was to ask him, okay, let's pause this situation. Brandon, how are you feeling right now? And it might take a good half an hour to get this out of people, because usually even people who are in connection with themselves often will suppress their emotions because we generally shame emotions, at least in our society. And so we would expect him to say something like, well, I really love Julia, but I feel like I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. I don't know what to do. I'm kind of scared that she's going to leave me. I'm scared that my parents are going to freak out. I'm just trying to make everyone happy, and I don't know what to do. I know I want to be with Julia, but sometimes I worry about her in terms of how rigid she is, but I don't know. And I love my mom, but sometimes I just really want to push back. Okay, so that would be spoken from a place of knowing who you are and how you feel. You can be confused. You could be on the fence about things and still be in touch with who you are, but it's the way that you process it and it's the way that you talk about it. The way you talk about it reflects how you feel about it on the inside. With someone who is not in connection with who they are, if I was to ask them how they felt, he might say something like, well, I don't know. I'm just trying to get through the day. Or, well, Julia, she'll get used to it. She'll figure it out. And then just kind of end. The conversation just kind of ends. It just dies. And if you've ever talked with someone like this, and particularly you clinicians, you might have run into this before. It can mean a lot of different things, but one of the things it can indicate is essentially that they don't understand even the question, how do you feel about something? They don't understand the question, tell me about how you're thinking about this whole process. What are all the different factors here? Because they've never been able to do that. And so the question, it's like they're colorblind in a sense. And you're asking them to look at the red versus green thing, and they're just like, I don't see the difference between red and green. And so you're asking them a question of like, how do you feel? What do you want? They're just like, they either will not, usually they don't know they don't know. Usually people don't know what they don't know. Some people know they don't know. Some people who aren't in touch with themselves, they know they're not in touch with themselves. But a lot of people aren't. And I wouldn't be surprised if Brandon was one of those people who didn't know. And so they will tend to answer the question assuming they know how to answer. And so they'll answer it and they think they have answered it sufficiently for the other person, but usually it's not sufficient to the other person. And it can come across as aloof and as uncaring. That's the way he just came across here, right? She's saying, do or die, buddy. Ultimatum, either we move out or I stop doing chores and I start sleeping in this room, or I'm going back home. Do or die here, buddy. And he is like, okay, you'll get used to it. Anyway, we have dinner with my parents. Okay. So that looks like a psychopath. That looks like someone without empathy that doesn't care about anyone's feelings. Maybe he is a psychopath. There'd be no way to know based on this show. It's more likely, because psychopathy is pretty rare, but it's more likely that there's some other explanation, and one of those explanations could be that he isn't in connection with himself. So he hears this thing from her, and he's thinking, okay, I don't know what to do, so let's just do what my mom wants me to do, because that's what I've always done in my life, and that usually works out for me. So I don't know what to do here, so let's just do what my mom wants and go to dinner with her, because that's what her expectations are. Now, from the outside, it'll be like, how callous and how uncaring and how non-listening can you be? But he might, when you go to a 4-year-old and you say, hey, buddy, do or die, either we do this or I'm out of here, you wouldn't be surprised if the 4-year-old said, Mommy, what are we supposed to do? You would expect that. There's a possibility that he has an even younger version of his understanding of who he is and what he wants. And when he's presented with confusion and he doesn't know it, because if you are in connection with yourself, as I was saying earlier, you would process this new information from Julia, and you would go to who you are, and you'd be like, okay, I don't want to lose Julia. I love her. I really do not want to lose her. But my mom, you would have this tension on the inside. But it seems to just bypass everything, because there's no stopping at go, because there's no center of who he is and what he wants. Anyway, let's continue to watch. I'm guessing Julia is going to say, did you not just hear me? I just gave you an ultimatum. I don't want to go to dinner with your parents.
Okay, we need to go dinner and quickly go home.
Okay.
The other outside possibility here is that Brandon is trying to get rid of Julia. He certainly is acting like someone that doesn't want Julia to stick around. When he came home, he didn't say hello to her. He seems to be blowing her off. That's confusing, because it seemed like he really did like her. But again, if you're not in connection with who you are, one, you might not actually be in love with someone. You might actually just feel like, well, I think I'm supposed to like this person, or this person makes me feel good, kind of. I think, that's the part of it. It's like you don't really know what's happening. You don't really know when your needs are being met. So there's that possibility. Or because of the tension with mom, and because now he's in mom's realm, that his selfhood becomes erased by mom's expectation of him or something. I don't know. This is kind of confusing to me. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Let me know what you think in the comments, and everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.